everyone, I'm Karen Frankel and I'm here to get you drawing. Let's talk about negative shapes. Negative shapes in drawing are the bits that are between the positive, so I would be considered a positive, this mouse would be a positive, and if I hold up this mouse and this Canon lens cap, the space between the two would be the negative shape of the positive mouse and the positive lens cap. So putting it simply, that's what negative shape is. It's quite simple really when you think about it. Starting. Okay, so why do we need negative spaces? Or actually, negative spaces exist regardless of whether we like it or not. Negative spaces, as I've explained to you before, are in between what we would usually consider positive spaces. So in this image here, this is some wildflowers out from north of Perth a couple of years ago. And when you take a photograph or when you look at real life, there is something everywhere. There's no place where there's nothing. And if we consider that the plant, which is nicely in focus, is the positive, the negative shapes are the bits in between. So why did I say they were positive in my heading of my email? Well, what I meant was they are very positive for our use as drawers. They help us to draw. What happens often with drawing something like this is that we tend to focus on the positive and then we don't relate the positive things that we're drawing, we don't relate to the other positive things that we're drawing, and we just head down and draw. So I'm doing this sort of quick and nasty drawing, as I like to call it, and all I'm interested is in getting those flame shapes. And I'm trying my hardest not to look at the negative shapes. Looking at negative shapes is a very natural thing for me to do because I've done it so often, and it is a natural thing for me to do as a drawer. But I'll point out why the negative shapes, or the observation of the negative shapes, would have helped in this instance. So I've just gone and drawn each flame shape very, very quickly. But if I look at this shape here, and I'm going to put my photograph in a plastic sleeve. Hopefully it is not shining too much in that light, and you'll see why I'm doing it in a plastic sleeve in a sec. Now my screen is delayed, so I can only see it now, and that's terrible. Okay, so that's shining in your eyes. Let's see what happens if I do that. Is that better? Picking it up a bit. Okay, so if I draw on here and I draw the actual negative shape, this is a whiteboard marker that I'm drawing on the plastic. And this is a great tip to help you to draw using a whiteboard marker on a piece of plastic. There's a plastic sleeve, obviously. And I've just noted some of these negative shapes. And if I take that out of the sleeve now, you can see against the white, again, apologies for the reflection, you can see that that little shape that I've colored in is nowhere near that shape there. So when I was drawing this, if I had drawn these negative shapes first, or if I had simply observed that negative shape, I would have drawn a more successful rendition of these flowers. Okay, so that is a very quick and simple demonstration of why negative shapes, or the observation of negative shapes, is really good. Now, I'm looking to see if anyone is commenting. Hope you're still around. Okay, so that's the first thing to tell you about negative shapes, is that they exist everywhere. Please don't tell me that it's frozen again. It looks like it's frozen on my screen again. No, it hasn't. Good. So these negative shapes always exist, and if you actually pay attention to them and you draw them, you will end up with excellent positive shapes. Now, it's not usual that we always draw with negative shapes, or only negative shapes. What we sometimes do, and there is an image which I love, of a chair, and my students will know that that chair they have drawn sometimes with that real chair in front of them, and I have got them to draw the negative shapes in between the legs of the chair. And I hope you can see my cursor moving there, and I might do something a little bit techy, because I'm loving my tech. If I draw in there, that is a negative shape of this chair. So many of you have done this exercise. So you can see negative shapes will help you to draw things accurately, but actually drawing a whole thing like this chair, that's just Karen being cruel and taking negative shapes to an extreme, or the practice of negative shapes. My mouse skills are not so good. I have actually got a stylus that I just forgot to have handy. So that is the observation of negative shape helps us to draw things more accurately. Now, the second thing I want to say about negative shapes, and I'm going to go onto a different picture in my Photoshop. So that's the one I wanted. Okay, so this is a still life, obviously, and one of the problems that we have in when we're drawing still lives, there you go. So you've got that still life there in front of you, and you've got my drawing page at the same time. One of the problems we have, and it's quite similar to what I got wrong when I was drawing the flower, is that we tend to focus just on the positive once again, and not only do we draw just those positive shapes, but when we draw other shapes, so if we go over to our bottle, we actually don't pay enough attention to where things are relative to the other. So if I end that flower there that's closest to the bottle, I might, and again I have to deliberately get it wrong, because I do by instinct nowadays look at negative shapes. That doesn't mean I don't get it wrong, but I try as far as possible. So if I've drawn my bottle like that, I'm just sketching my basic shapes down. If I look at the distance between the bottle there and the edge of the flower, that's way bigger than it actually is in the photograph. And what it looks like in the actual photograph is really, really pretty. It's a beautiful line down the bottle, or maybe we'll move the line if that's the flower there. Okay, the bottle is close to that flower, and it turns the corner just underneath, so it's got this lovely shoulder coming through there, and that is really beautiful. And part of drawing skill, part of beautiful composition, is being aware of these sexy, I call them sexy, I know them, but weird, these beautiful negative shapes between objects. They are gorgeous, and I notice them all the time, even when I'm not drawing. So there's a petal there, and it's made a beautiful negative shape in there, and then the next petal, you know, comes down, and I can still look at, okay, it's halfway. But I am aware of this space in between. Oh, I forgot to change that focus thing. I'm just going to go back, because when it does that focus, it's a real pain in the neck. So excuse me, I'm just going to turn automatic focus off. Bear with me. At least I am getting used to the technology. Okay, so now that focusing, good, won't change. So back to our beautiful negative spaces, and you can see between the apple and the bottle and the pear, there's another beautiful space. There's actually a join of the backboard and the table, so even that is a little negative space. And they are really, really lovely. Even the stalk coming out of the pear right next to that cup and turning in like that, that tiny little stalk there, it's gorgeous. I mean, the stalk, you know what I mean. So finding these compositions, finding these beautiful negative shapes in between are so important for beautiful composition. Obviously on this side you're getting the and I'm not trying to draw an actual still life here, I'm just demonstrating. So if you look at the shape of the D inside the handle, and if you look at the shape of the cup inside there, all of these little things, actually I should be drawing an ellipse for those of you who know me, but you can see there's actually a, oh, this has, let me just see if I'm still on your page. Ah, okay. So you can see the little tiny little shapes in there, which are, whether they're negative or positive, they are just shapes. So sometimes, for example, when I'm drawing a portrait, there is never not a face when you're drawing a portrait, but there are shapes between eyes, between the nose and the mouth. And so if you pay attention to those shapes and where things are, the relationship between all the items in your composition, in your still life, obviously in this case, they will be beautiful, instead of disjointed and draw one item and then draw another item and then draw another item and not paying attention to other things. A negative shape can be as simple as, where does the bottom of the bottle intersect that apple? And having a looking there, I changed my bottle to there, so the bottle will, so I've completely screwed this up. I wasn't paying that much attention there, but now I can see that there's this tiny shape there, and if I concentrate on this that I'm coloring in, instead of this, which is the positive, you find a much more accurate drawing. So that is an excellent reason for negative shapes. I'm just looking for my notes, because I do have notes, believe it or not. I try not to just ramble on incessantly. Okay, okay, so that's the relationship between things when you're drawing a subject, and we've spoken about composition. So these beautiful negative shapes make up some really good composition, And another part of composition, which I am always encouraging people to do, is to not draw. Now I know I haven't finished this drawing and it's not a real still life. I might just finish a little bit off like that just so that we've got something to look at. Something like that ish. That'll do. Okay, if you have drawn like I have, with a big gap all the way around, a big space all the way around your drawing, that is not particularly exciting as a composition. And what you need to do, and this is another point about negative shapes, which I absolutely love, is if you draw so that, I've got an impromptu border here, which is not working on this particular picture that I've drawn. So I'll draw a border in. If you actually draw a border and you have some of your items going off the page, I'm also going to put an imaginary line to create a table edge. Remember there's a table edge there, so I was pretty close. And I can even color in my table there. What happens when you've got a border is that you get really interesting negative shapes that are created against the edge, created against that border. So I know this is a quick and nasty. In other words, I'm just scribbling in that dark. And what you end up with is a play of dark and light and negative shapes, so even this little lovely little shape there, I haven't put a handle on, believe it or not, that is quite exciting, and it allows your head to move, or the viewer's eyes actually, not head, to move around this picture. And so if I just fill in some of these leaves and flowers, just make them up quickly. Again, if this flower is going off the border, I have a lovely negative shape there against that edge. And next time you are looking at sketches and drawings and paintings in a gallery, have a look at the shapes that are created, the negative shapes that are created, either within, what's going on here? That was my old bottle and that's my new bottle. That's bothering me. That's right, I put the edge of the bottle there for the negative shape here. That makes much more sense now. Oh, but now I've got another thing missing. I've got, that shouldn't be in the middle of the bottle. Okay, I told you I wasn't doing a real one. But if you look out for these negative shapes against the border, you will see that they are really, really attractive and interesting, zigzagging in, all of that sort of thing. Okay, so here's one that I prepared. This was an en plein air, which means in the plein air of being outside. I went to Carragini about 8 years ago now, 7-8 years ago, and did this quick sketch. And trees are fantastic for observing negative shapes. And I used a bit of wax resist. But look what happens when I put a border on that. Look how much more interesting it is. Oh, even that's not really the right size. I'm going to make that a bit shorter. So that now these are going off the edge and creating really nice negative shapes, even the shape of the sky against that top edge works. Last thing that I wanted to tell you about negative shapes. Susan says she's seen that chair before. Yes, indeed. The last thing that I mentioned in the email, I mentioned the relationships. So yes, the relationships between things, so that you know where they are and you get these sexy little negative shapes, even if you do screw things up. Told you I wasn't paying attention. I should have been. The next thing is about your composition, so thinking about where things are placed within your border as well to create these negative shapes. And sometimes we can even contrive something in the background if we've got too big a space around in some sections and I want to get rid of that ghost of a bottle there. I might suggest that there's a window or something in the background here. And you can see how that is helping the pattern of darks and lights on this composition. So it's all about the play of the negative shapes. Okay, and the last thing I mentioned, which is also about negative shapes, I am going to pop you over to a different screen, and I don't think I've set it up. Oh dearie dear. That was very silly of me. I will post them in the comments below. So all in all, technology has defeated me a little bit today. I will bring you back to me. I looked at some logos. If you go to Google search and go to images and you click negative shape logos, you will see how fantastic and how clever they are when designers create logos, how they use logos to how they use negative shape to depict what they want to depict. So it's I had hoped to have that ready to show you, but unfortunately I didn't get there in time, and so I haven't, but I will definitely post them in the feed below. So that's your quick chat on negative shapes. Thank you for your patience while we had technical difficulties and the screen frozen. I'm loving getting suggestions, so this is the second request that I've had for the subject of our Friday Live. Some of you may not know that I did a very quick impromptu live on Saturday morning about drawing grasses, which was from somebody asking me a question in the Get Drawing group. So please don't be afraid to do that. You can go and look at that grasses live post either on the video link in the Facebook page, or you can go to the YouTube channel. I've collected all the Get Drawing YouTubes in one place, so have a look at the email to get that link, and you can go and catch up on all those videos. So it's been lovely to see you. For all those enjoying Easter this weekend, I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful weekend. I know it's all a bit difficult and we're doing things online with our families, unfortunately. I celebrated Passover a couple of nights ago and it was a little bit strange, to say the least. But I hope that you all feel the warmth and the love that's coming at you from all of your family and friends, and from me. Get Drawing, I'm loving seeing it on the Get Drawing Facebook page. You can always email me a question if you don't want to post your picture and own up to it, and I will do a critique on your Get Drawing page. See you next week. Lovely to demonstrate for you today. Bye.